aspect or component to this is this idea of the be, or essentially what you're telling yourself, your self-talk that's the result of that activating event. Because whether you realize it or not, how we feel in anything we experience and how we choose to act is driven from our self-talk, what we tell ourselves. As a matter of fact, we have a little voice that's in our heads, and that little voice is occurring all of the time. What research shows is that about 6,000 thoughts are going through our head on any given day. They're happening all the time. Sometimes they're these benign or random kind of thoughts. However, other ones are influencing the decisions we make on a daily basis. And oftentimes they influence our decisions around our physical health and our training. For me, I like to look at them, when you're looking at athletic mindset, as our personal sports announcer. It's the person that's giving us the play-by-play all day long. Now, sometimes that sports announcer is your biggest cheerleader or your entire cheering section. It's telling you, you got this, you can do it, go champ. Next is nationals, or next is the championship. However, at other times, your sports announcer is your biggest critic. They're the hecklers in the audience, throwing every insult in the book at you. They're your inner critic. Look, give it up. It's impossible. Your body's never going to respond. You'll never go anywhere you want to go. Hang it up. You suck. Just go get a drink. So how do you change that? How do you increase your cheering section and decrease that inner critic? Well, the first step is to learn to tune in. You tune in, you start to learn to pay attention to your self-talk. What is that personal sports commentator actually telling you? Or in other words, what are you telling yourself that is helping you to keep your motivation and your drive going? And in contrast, what are you telling yourself that's getting in the way, that's distracting you or discouraging you from reaching your goals? Today, I'm going to cover 3 basic strategies that you might be able to use to help yourself. The first strategy is really the skill of learning to build consistency in paying attention to your daily monologue that you have in your head. Think in terms of your nutrition, your workouts in the gym, your cardio, or heck, your whole life. Overall, everything that's happening in it. What self-talk are you having that's driving you ahead, and what self-talk is getting in your way? There are 2 basic approaches that I like to use when it comes to learning to identify or track your thinking. One is to do some form of logging or tracking. And so you can use your iPhone Notes app. You can throw a small pad of paper in your pocket or backpack or a purse, and then take some time throughout your day to tune in and listen to what your self-talk is. Those random thoughts that are popping in your head and what you're saying to yourself. It might take a little quiet time in the shower to get that frequency just right, or it might be sitting alone in a quiet room, but they're all there. So the key is to start tracking what you're saying to yourself. What are you telling yourself about your strengths and your assets? What are you telling yourself about your deficits or your shortcomings? How about when you hit a challenge or a roadblock? Much like you did when you started this plan around tracking your macros and tracking your workouts, it's important to gather that real solid baseline about what your self-talk is doing right now. What is that personal sports commentator telling you? You can draw a line down the middle. You can list the positive self-talk you have on one side and the negative or the ones that get in the way on the other side. Or just do it as a stream of consciousness in a narrative way. The key is to see, can you notice any common themes that are emerging? Another strategy to do, and I think some of your coaches have you do this, is to journal. If you have a habit already of being a diary keeper or a journaler, start devoting a small section of it to your thoughts. What do you remember that went through your head throughout the day? What was the theme of the day? What did you tell yourself that was driving you forward in your day? What was getting in the way? And the same here, just reflect back every week. See if you have any kind of common themes that start to emerge. Here's the great thing about just doing this one approach. If you log, you track, you journal, you're already essentially starting to influence the thinking that you have or your self-talk, that personal commentator. Ultimately, the goal is to increase your cheering section that can help improve your athletic mindset. If you really want to take it to another level, there's a whole bunch of research out there about expressive and structured writing. And great researchers, Jamie Pennebaker, Joshua Smythe, there's some really good ones out there that have done these huge meta-analyses on writing as a strategy for making changes. And what they find is that if you took 20 minutes a day and you just wrote, and you really focused on what are the personal heat areas in your life, what is stressing you, what is distressing you at the moment, you have a positive outcome after about 6 to 8 exercises. Now, if you want to increase that impact even more, if you write about those things that are distressing you and you attach them to some kind of coping plan, basically, what do you want to do about it? Where are you at right now? Where do you wish to go? What you see is another significant bump in positive outcomes. It's kind of theoretical, but at this point, it's kind of that idea of either a cathartic release, so you're a bit like a volcano that's ready to explode and you build up every day, and that writing just shoots out and releases it on occasion, that decreases the pressure and it relieves your sense and gives you a bit more comfort. Another kind of theoretical idea is that you actually are restructuring your cognitions, you're restructuring your thinking, because simply doing the behavioral exercise of writing, you're taking what's in your head and you're attaching it to a behavioral exercise, which is writing. As you do that, you're slowing down your thoughts to a point where you can truly start to modify them. And you kind of get away from that sense that everything's jumbled up in your head. So take the time to track, log, journal. That is really a key to getting yourself a baseline, just a simple sense of having a good idea of what flows through your mind on a daily basis. The second one is this idea of infusing your self-talk intentionally. And you do that with using methods of positive thinking. In a lot of ways, it's like priming your pump. It's the warm-up exercise that you use throughout your day. Here's a little personal disclosure. As crazy as it sounds, my dad, who was this fanatical coach and a former college athlete himself, and was also going through the counseling program at the University of Nevada, Reno, would come home and every single night, and as a middle school kid or even as an elementary school kid, it was just a pain in the ass. But boy, looking back, I truly value and appreciate what he did. What he would do is he would recite with me every single evening two things. And the first is that he would do what he would call the Code of the Champion. And there's a poem out there someplace with it. And I'm sure I'm going to miss a verse or two here, but this is how it would go. He would say, tell me about the Code of the Champion. And then I would repeat then, if you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you'd like to win but think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out in this world we find that success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in your state of mind. For life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. And that would always be followed with a second question, and that was, what is the purpose of athletics? And then my rote response was to be learning how to fall down and getting back up again. And that ritual happened all the way through the point in time that I moved out at 17 and went away to school. And again, just reflecting back, it was probably one of the most impactful things my father could have done with me, because it framed my mindset. And I can tell you, being a competitive athlete all the way through high school and then into college, it always felt like there was something a little different in me when I would watch myself struggle. I had this unique talent, I guess, to restructure myself pretty quickly, to bounce myself on track. And it actually helped me significantly in continuing to maintain being competitive all the way through college, because being a college outside linebacker at 5'10" and 200, 215 pounds, I was a little guy. But there was something about my mindset that was unique, and it was different. And I give a great deal of credit to what my dad did in terms of helping to frame my mindset about athletics and about sports and about the importance of your mind just as much, if not more, than your physical capabilities and your training. You can do the same thing. You can start it today. Find some kind of positive poem or a saying. Find a quote, or get some type of mantra together and rehearse it every single night. Either before you go to bed, pick it up with the first thing you do in the morning, say it to yourself in the shower when you're getting ready. What you're essentially doing is you're priming your pump. You're giving that personal sports commentator a little kick in the ass. And what you're doing is you're essentially saying, I'm looking for the cheering section. I need that cheerleader with me throughout my day today. And it's also saying, I want less of the heckler in my daily self-talk. There's a couple other ways you can do this, and any of them are better than nothing. Get a bunch of Post-it notes and stick positive self-affirmations all over your mirror or on your counter or on your refrigerator, wherever you can stick them up. Build some kind of collage or picture board or vision board that's focused on positive images and positive self-statements. Go buy a daily affirmations book. Journal just lists of your positive assets and qualities and your strengths. If you have a home gym, tack every place on the wall a bunch of motivational posters. And if you're an auditory person, get a pump up song that is talking about having that mindset, that positive perspective through the day, and play that thing. All of these are intended to boost essentially your sense of self-efficacy, your belief in your capabilities, which is truly the most consistent predictor of somebody adhering to change and experiencing success. The next one, which is a little bit more complicated, it's our third strategy, and that's actually confronting or challenging, and then ultimately replacing some of the counterproductive or ineffective self-talk we have on a daily basis. What we're going to do is just hit on a couple of things with the key orientation or focus that words matter. And words matter in what we say to ourselves, and words matter in how we communicate with others. I'm going to hit the big ones. There's a whole laundry list. You can look online any place and you'll find a different set of them all over. The most important thing is that it's about recognizing the language that you use with yourself that has an impact on your perspective. The first one I'm going to cover are what are called should statements. And should statements are this idea of demanding perfection and putting unrealistic expectations on yourself. When you use shoulds, you're essentially contributing to your own guilt, shame, regret, or sense of hopelessness. It ultimately impacts you in moving forward. Should serve as a pivotal role when it comes to people's fear of failure and their increased levels of anxiety. As a matter of fact, many of the cognitive behavioral therapists out there believe that most of our suffering as human beings really comes from our use of shoulds with ourselves and with others. Couple examples of shoulds. I should have trained harder this week. I should have hit my macros today. I should have gotten up earlier so I can get to the gym before work. I shouldn't have eaten that snack before I went to bed. I shouldn't have to work this hard. Should. If you were ever in therapy, maybe you might have heard your therapist at some point or another tell you to quit shoulding on yourself. And it's really essentially the idea of learning how to cut yourself a little bit of slack. So one of the most kind of elementary or basic things to do if you're somebody that has a tendency to use should statements is to reframe that language. Take your should and modify it to it would be nice to have, I would have liked to. And then of course, feel free to attach any kind of solution to it. It would have been nice to train a little harder this week. Starting next week, I'm going to do A, B, C, D. What that does is essentially moves that to being in your control. You've replaced the should with a preference, and then you can attach the solution to it as you move forward. The second one, which really kind of attaches or ties into these shoulds, is the times that we use words like I have to, I need to, and I must. Using words like have to, need to, and must, they're essentially us not clearly discriminating the difference between what we would like or what we have a preference towards and truly something that's a necessity, like air, food, water, shelter. Those are the things that we can't survive without. However, the rest are our desires or our wants or our preferences. As strong as the desire is that you have personally, it's important to distinguish for yourself what you're actively choosing to do on a day-to-day basis versus what you actually need. In essence, it's pretty empowering because it places the responsibility back into your hands. And then you have the control and opportunity to make a proactive choice versus applying it as if it were an involuntary survival necessity. So let me step out of the exercise training realm for just a moment, and let me just give you an intimate relationship example. I want you to just take a moment to listen to the difference between these two statements. I need a partner to be faithful to me. So I need a partner to be faithful with me. And then here's the second one. I choose to be in a relationship where faithfulness is a priority. Now, as subtle as that might sound, can you notice the difference? Does one sound a bit more empowering, active, and in your hands? Now let's think about a couple of training examples. I have to go to the gym tonight to do that glute workout. I hear that from my wife on occasion. I need to hit my macros today. Let's do the switch. Now replace the language. I'm going to go to the gym tonight so I can get that glute workout in. It's important to me to hit my macros today. Just that subtle switch in language makes a difference because it places the opportunity to act back into your hands. It becomes your choice, which means you can guide it. It's not something that's being made for you. It's your decision to move forward. The third that I'll cover is this idea of disqualifying the positives. And I know I have challenges with this at times. It's this habit of filtering out or ignoring the positive information and putting my energy into the negative. So I can only give you an example. You do measurements every week. And for the last 4 weeks, your measurements have changed in the direction that you desire. However, this week, your waist measurement didn't change. Somebody who disqualifies the positives puts a lot of their energy and focus into that specific measurement that didn't change. They start wondering, is this even working for me? I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can do this. All of their energy goes into the one thing that wasn't on the positive list. It's like going to the gym and every one of your exercises, you increase weight or increase your performance with the exception of this one specific exercise. However, you leave the gym and over the next set of hours or days, your energy is put into how you didn't get that one exercise, how you actually had to drop weight instead of being able to increase like all of the other ones. The key here is take a bow and celebrate some of the small stuff. It's the small steps that reinforce us to continue to drive forward and make the changes we wish to make. So focus on your progress, not the exception to the rule. 3 more. All or none thinking. This is kind of another term for it might be polarized thinking. It's that it's either black or it's white. It's always or it's never. It's good or it's bad. It's everyone or no one. In other words, we're essentially overgeneralizing our experiences in an extreme way. It's thinking about things in absolutes. The key to this, there's gray every place. Find the middle. Back up, look for the gray, look for what the alternative solutions are to the polarized elements that you're picking. Finally, let me hit on the last two that I'm going to cover today. And the interesting thing about these is before this call, I was scrambling around like a maniac yesterday, trying to figure out, am I going to be talking about what counselors do in treatment programs and in private practice offices, or am I going to be talking about things that are applicable to athletics? So I pulled up a bunch of sports psychology studies and articles all about the ideas of cognitive distortions and mindset, just to see, is there something really unique with athletic performance that differs than everyday people making everyday life-changing? And ultimately, my personal conclusion was, nope, they're the same ones that impact all of us, whether you're an athlete or not. However, these last two are pretty interesting because I did find a really good study that was a doctoral dissertation that was done in 2017. And in that dissertation, they looked at kind of the range of distortions that people make, and they looked at its impact on athletics. And the two most statistically significant ones that had impact on athletics were what's called catastrophizing. So another word for that is magnification or awfulizing. And essentially, that's our tendency to exaggerate a bad experience. So we take a bad experience we have and then we blow it way out of proportion and way out of the reality of the situation. And competitors who do this, they magnify a negative situation or problem or a fear, actually are at much higher risk of staging or exacerbating or maintaining diagnostic anxiety disorders. Additionally, that whole revving up of your system, because it's a catastrophe, it's the worst thing that could ever happen in the world, also raises your arousal and your autonomic nervous system, which also has a pretty significant impact on your overall training and your performance. So the solution to that is a little bit like the all or none. Step back and take a look at the bigger picture. Focus on being objective. Is this really the worst thing in the world that is happening to you? Are you retaining water weight because it was this week versus next week or the week before? Or is it truly a catastrophe? The second one, which I found really interesting, is the idea of comparison of yourself to others. They found that athletes that are constantly comparing themselves in an unfavorable way to their opponent, either before or during any type of competition, tend to experience really negative outcomes. They don't perform very well as an athlete. And the one that I can think of is, look at her, she's got me, right before you get on a stage. Oh man, they all look better than I do. I bet her metabolism's way better than mine. You know, I'm the only one here with these hormone or health issues. You know what? I'm the only one here going through menopause out of this whole group of women that are getting ready to go on stage. And so those are just kind of relative examples. Ultimately, they simply impact your self-confidence and they lead to overall deterioration in your general functioning and your overall performance. So again, focus on what you have control over now. All right, last slide. Here's what we talked about. The first is this idea of learning to tune into your personal sports announcer. It's figuring out the times that you're using that inner critic or your heckler, and the times that inner cheerleader or positive thinking coach is at play in your life. You can do that with journaling. You can do that with tracking or logging exercises. The second one is intentionally infusing the script. So you're basically giving your internal sports announcer a script to go off of. And you can do this by developing some type of thinking code or mantra, like mine, the code of the champion. The other one is this idea of just influencing your script by getting yourself exposed to positive statements, note stickies that are sitting on your mirror, to reading affirmations book, to doing anything around a vision board or a collage that's about positive, motivational posters. Then the final one, which is definitely the most difficult and that takes the most amount of practice, is this idea of challenging, replacing, or reframing that counterproductive self-talk. And the big ones I want to leave you with is this idea of shoulding on yourself. Really pay attention to the shoulds that you use. Should have, shouldn't have. Try to really find ways to replace those with language about it would be nice to, it would have been great if I had, however, and then look for the solution. That is, in essence, my basic presentation. Do I get to go eat ice cream now?
You're off the hook. Now, does anyone have any questions? Thank you so much, by the way, Frankie. That was awesome.
Sure.
It was great. Frankie, I think somebody had asked, can you go back over the tip for disqualifying the positive? What are the counter things to do for that one?
Yeah. Okay. So people who disqualify the positive are individuals who essentially have a tendency to put their energy into what didn't go right, and they usually pick small things as opposed to looking at the larger picture. So the biggest thing, or the most important thing that I like to do, is go ahead and sandwich in between what you did that worked, what you did that didn't work, that didn't work for you, and then at the end, again, what are you going to do about it? What is most valuable, or what is most important to you? The key around that is to put your energy into the 80% of your workout that went really well, and decrease the amount of time, attention, and energy you put to the 20% that didn't go right. And you can do that through all kinds of different methods. I love personally, I love the idea of journaling because in an earlier career, we really focused on the idea of expressive and structured writing, and how that truly does redesign your cognitions. It refocuses the way that you think. That's mine. I'm probably not looking at a chat board, so.
It's okay. Well, I'll read the question that was just asked, and then if you guys do have questions, you can just raise your hand and we'll call on you. But the next one was from Stacy, and it says, best advice for someone just getting started for staying with a positive mind frame.
Yeah, for me, I think by far the best thing that you can do is work on priming your pump. And so it's essentially setting the script or the stage for yourself. So get yourself a poem that you really like, that's positive, and that's about a positive outlook, thinking positive, and build a habit. Build a habit of going over it every single morning or every single night before you go to bed. That's a wonderful way. And it's probably the easiest method to really get started on this. When my kids were little, I had Post-it notes all over the place, talking about how talented they were, how bright they were, how valuable as a person they were. Do that same thing for yourself. If it feels corny, stick it in your car. Put it any place. Anything you can do that is that visual connection to something that's positive about you. Do it. It's by far the quickest and easiest way to get started in modifying that overall mindset.
Okay, Christine, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm still learning to work this thing. I really appreciate the talk. I'm really big into counseling and psychology and all that. But the issue I have in this particular sport is that it's very subjective. So my negative talk comes from that, is that one, at our age group, it's hard to find good examples that we can follow. But it doesn't matter. I can be the best I am on one given day, but they may see it differently. And not to say that the other person didn't win. And that's where I struggle. I'm a college athlete. I played volleyball. If I made the point, great. If I missed the serve, great. It was more black and white than this sport is. And as I get older and the longer I compete, the differences that I see are so tiny that sometimes I just can't see it. And then when you don't do well or you don't get that number, I talked to Ann today about it. I'm really struggling with that. I just don't see the change, even though I know it's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's hard not to do the shoulds. It's hard not to say, I guess, my question is my motto is I live in organized chaos. Nothing is ever 100%. I've never done 100% of my workouts. I've never done 100% of the diet. And so my negative talk is, that's why I can't take it to the next step, because I don't do this as a full-time athlete. I have a full-time job. I have kids. So I'm having a really hard time right now I've done the journaling, I've done the positive talking, but I still have that person in my head, little Christine, talking to me saying that, you should have, if you would have gotten here, but it's a subjective sport.
Yeah.
So not getting your card or losing a tournament doesn't mean you didn't succeed. And that's what I have a really hard time with.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of said it right there, which is, just because you didn't win didn't mean you didn't succeed.
Right.
And so I think probably the biggest thing I notice in the difference with athletes is, are you externally driven? So are you driven by the external reward that comes, or by the internal sense of how you feel different about yourself and the goals and accomplishments that you experience? But I do have to tell you, I do I've watched Ann compete where somebody has beat her, and I know I'm so damn biased because I think she's amazing, but I'm like, that's bullshit. That's wrong. There is no way. And there are just those subtle things that happen. I wish I had a better answer for you. I guess the biggest thing that I would say in your comments or statements is put as much energy as you can into the rewards that you get for yourself by having that courage to actually get on a stage. I mean, there's not a lot of people out there that have the courage to step onto a stage. I know I would never do it. And so just that courage is a huge accomplishment in itself. And if you could in some way put your emphasis and your energy into that, as opposed to where you score and where you end up when it comes to competing with other people, that's probably the best I can offer you on that. But I admire all of you.
I think you said something important that maybe I need to explore is, am I doing it for the external reward or the internal feeling that I get? And to be honest with you, I probably don't know that answer. So maybe that's something I need to work through.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Great question. Yeah, great question.
Ellie.
Hey, I just wanted to say thanks. I'm a therapist also, and this is something that I struggle with myself. And often this is something that I work with my patients. And sometimes I go home and I feel like the biggest hypocrite in all the world, you know? So you definitely, some of these things, I work with, and then you gave me some really good pointers. So I did take some notes on my phone. So I have some good stuff to take home. So I just wanted to say thanks.
Oh, thank you. I always feel like therapists teach what they best need to learn. And so I know I struggle with everything that I talked about today is not unique to someone else. I think we all have that inner critic within ourselves. And so it's always great reminder. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ellie, for sharing that. And I just want to let everybody know, even as your guys' coaches, we struggle with a lot of the same things, if not the same things that you do. So, that's why I know with Anne and Corinne and myself, we want communication from you guys. And, when you have moments that you're struggling, share them with us, because more than likely we have gone through it. Like, we've been there with you. And so, and I know it's hard sometimes, because even me as an athlete, it's hard for me to talk to Jamie about those things sometimes. But once you do open up and allow somebody in, it is really, really helpful.
Anne, your hand's raised.
My hand is raised. Yeah, I just wanted to share a kind of just an anecdotal story that going back to where he was talking about like the comparison to others, because I think this sport more than anything lends itself to that. We're all on Instagram. We're all looking at other competitors. We're always comparing ourselves to everybody. And even if we're not competitors, just lifestyle people, you get on Instagram and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to look like that. I could never do that. And I think it was probably, I don't know, maybe my second or third show. And we went to San Diego, and I was in a line to get tanned. And the woman in front of me, I knew was in my class. And I got myself so psyched out because, of course, we're standing there buck naked. And I'm like, oh, yeah, she's got me. I'm done. I'm screwed. This is over. And it impacted my entire show. And my husband will tell you more than anybody. He's like, you just walked out there like you were already defeated. You had no confidence. You didn't have your swagger to you. You just didn't look like the same person. And I did. I like slunk out there like, okay, I know I've already lost. I don't feel ready. I don't look the way I want. And it showed. Like everything that was all wrapped up in my head took me out of that race. And I wish I could go back and not have had that comparison in my head and just done what I know to do and get out there and just like, have that confidence that I love having and connecting with the judges. Cause without it, I did terrible at that show. I didn't have fun. I didn't place well. And I knew I was psyched out before I even took one step on that stage. And it was all because I got myself completely spun out, comparing myself to this other woman who I thought looked amazing, So it happens for sure. I think the comparison one is a hard one for all of us in this sport. That's all. Anyone else?
I'll say that now I never want to compete ever in my entire life, knowing that I have to stand there naked in the line waiting to get taken. That's never going to happen. Stay a lifestyle competitor forever. That's a thing.
Well, now they have self-tan products, so it's much more pleasant. But yes, it was the learning to get in the tan line just is a traumatizing experience. I think everyone should have to do it once. Yes. Maybe anyone else have any questions, comments? Okay, baby dog. Hi.
All right.
I think we're good.
I let you all off 5 minutes early.
Thank you so much, Frankie. That was
Yeah.
amazing.
Good. I hope something isn't useful for everybody. I hope.
Absolutely.
It was nice to
Amazing.
go through the anxiety of getting on here with a bunch of people I hadn't met yet and doing this. It was a good growth opportunity for me, I'll say.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate your time and sharing
Yeah.
your knowledge with us. I personally have decided and committed to reading and reciting Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou every single night. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You got it.
All right. Well, you're more than welcome to stay if you'd like, or you can go have fun.
No, I am going to go throw my feet up on the couch.
Okay.
Have a great evening, everybody. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. All right, everybody, I think we are all done. Thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday afternoon or night, evening. We are going to be meeting again on April 24th for our next call, and Mama Bear, Jamie, is going to be on that call. It'll be a really, really good one because she's going to be talking about progressive overload and ways to really maximize your workout. So it'll be a really good one. Again, we'll send out reminders for that. And then also, we have a team hike coming up here in Arizona on the 23rd. So if you're local, come out. If you're not local, we would love to have you out. All of that information and the invite is on Facebook. So if you have any questions about that, let us know. But it would be a great, great time. And the weather right now in Arizona is absolutely beautiful. So that's it. If anybody doesn't have any questions, then we're going to let you go. All right. Everybody have a great Sunday. Have a fantastic week. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I think we just have one more person left.
Yeah.
Do you want to stop recording, Ann?
Yes.
Christine, did you have a question?